generally three basic parameters in delay. You've got level, repeats, and time. In this case, we have level on the far left-hand side here, and this basically governs how loud my repeated note is. So at the moment, it's at its minimum value, so you're barely hearing any delay there at all. If I just turn that up to about half, you can hear my repeated note there now, and it's basically at half value, so half the level of my initial note. If I turn it up to full, so the repeated note, the initial repeated note is basically the same level as what I first played, but then it fades out based on the amount of repeats that I have. And this is our next parameter. So with the repeats, if I turn it to its minimum value, you're pretty much just getting a single repeat of the note you play. Single note. So as you turn this up, you get more and more repeats. Now, a lot of delays, when you turn the repeats to 100%, you'll get infinite repeats, which means you can play single notes and keep them ringing out. For instance, if I turn this almost to full, hit a note, so because it's basically holding the note infinitely, it's not basically recording any new notes. So I can play over the top of it and just play simple melodies over, suspended notes. So that's the repeat. Now, the repeat knob can often be called feedback. So sometimes you'll get a delay and it'll have a feedback parameter. Basically, that's the same as repeats. And then we have our time. Our time is basically how long it takes from the initial note that you play till you hear the note repeating. So if I turn it to its minimum value, you can barely hear the actual delayed note because the two notes are so close together. It's almost got a slight flanged kind of sound to it. But as I turn it up, you get more echo kind of effects. So small amounts of time is basically what they class as echo. And this is good for things like rockabilly type of effects. So for that kind of effect, I would probably turn the level of the repeats down and probably a few less repeats. Maybe a little bit more level. So, great for really percussive rockabilly type of effects there. As I turn the time up more, starting to get longer delay times, and this is where I would start using it for, say, playing solos and that kind of thing. I wouldn't have the level up full. I would probably turn the level to slightly below half, and the repeats probably to about a third as well. So So the more accentuated you want your solo notes to be, the more you'll turn up your level. So I'll go to about 2/3. Maybe a little bit more time. So, you can really fatten up a solo by using a good amount of delay. If I turn the repeats down slightly and the level up to full, I can get more of a slapback kind of thing. Now, if you've got a way of adjusting the tempo of your delay to a specified tempo, you can get what's known as dotted eighth note repeats. So the intro that I played is basically playing against the delay. So if I play that again without the delay, this is essentially what I'm playing. So it's pretty boring by itself, but when I add the delay, this is good for any kind of playing. So if you're playing through, say, a note scale, so it's just got a good kind of percussive playability to it. So you can experiment with a lot of different techniques there. It's great for making boring passages sound quite interesting. So they're the basic parameters of a delay, and we'll have a look at some different types of delays next. Aside from using delay for soloing, I quite often use it for other percussive type effects and special effects. So let's have a look at a few different techniques here. Now, in the last chapter and at the start of this chapter, I was doing a slapback type of effect. So basically that's setting in a dotted eighth note interval between what you're playing, and if you're using a delay such as this where you've only got a time control, you can't set a specific milliseconds amount, it's hard. It's kind of a bit of a guessing game. You just have to set a delay time and then work out. So for instance, if I play with a quicker delay time and I play the same tempo I was playing before, it's not sounding percussive, so I have to play that passage now quicker. So it just takes a bit of experience to hear the delay and know basically what tempo you need to play. Most modern delays have a tap tempo switch, which allows you to actually basically tap in the actual delay interval. So it takes all the guesswork out of setting a time. You can just basically tap it in and play along with the drummer. So with each beat of the kick drum, you can basically tap in using your foot and keep those kinds of delays in tempo. Another way you can do it if you know what the tempo is, so if you're playing to, say, 120 beats per minute, if you use a very simple formula, which is 45 divided by your tempo, which is 120, and then what it equals to is how many milliseconds. So for instance, 45 divided by 120 equals 0.375. So that means that if I set a milliseconds of 375, that will give me that same slapback type of effect. Apart from being able to work it out like that or tap tempo, if you've got a pedal such as this, it's just going to be a bit of a guessing game. But let's have a look at a few other techniques that we have there as well. Now, if I just turn that time up a little bit, we can get some sort of harmonized kind of effects. So if I play through, say, the A minor scale, it's almost like a fourth harmony there. So basically, because as I'm playing through the scale, by the time I get to the third or the fourth note, the first note is being repeated again. So basically I'm getting a note against the note I'm playing. So I'm all of a sudden building up this harmony. So if I speed it up a little bit. More of a third harmony, slow it down. Kind of a fifth harmony going on there. So by playing to certain tempos and setting the delay time, you can actually get some really cool harmony type of effects. If I keep that at a fairly slow delay time, I might just bring the repeats up a little bit. You can get other percussive effects where you're playing against the note. So okay, so let's have a look at different types of delays that you may come across from time to time. We've just been looking at single note delays at the moment, but your delay pedal may have other effects, such as this one, which has got a variety of different types of delay effects built into it. First of all, you've got stereo delays. Now, some, particularly rack modules, some pedals will, but not so common. Stereo delays allow you to set two totally separate delay times, so that you might have, say, a dotted eighth playing against a quarter note, for instance, and you again get some really percussive effects. It's great for really fattening up solos by setting two different delay times, and most often you can have them set differently in the left and the right channel. And of course, this is only going to work if you're using either a stereo power amp, 2 amps, or plugging into 2 channels of a mixing desk. Let's have a look at a couple of different effects we've got here. We've got a reverse delay, which basically allows us to play a note and then it will be played back in reverse. So let's have a listen. So it's a pretty freaky sounding thing when you're hearing notes back in reverse. Let's have a look at modulated delays. Now, modulated delays can often add either chorusing or slight detuning to the actual delay trails. So as I play through some notes, I'll just set a higher repeat rate so that you can actually hear them a little better. It's very subtle, but you can actually hear that the notes are slightly detuning as they fade out. Then you've got analog delays, which are based on old style analog delay pedals, delay units, which basically degrade the signal slightly. It's got kind of a warmer tone. It's not as crystal clean. It's basically just a dirty kind of delay. You got slapback, which we can set, as I showed you earlier when we did the little rockabilly thing. You can set basically a slap delay to take the guesswork out of actually setting it up. But here how it's basically giving me so that's the slapback delay. You've got a lo-fi delay, which is similar to the analog delay, but it's adding like a mild distortion to the actual signal. tape echo, which is based on the old style tape machines that used to be around in the old days. And tape delays used to basically have a tape, like as in a reel tape, but just a small length of tape that was set on a loop that would basically just keep recording on heads. Sometimes they were known as copycats. And they basically recorded and revolved around and replayed back what you played initially, and you could change the speed of the tape to basically speed up the delay or slow it down. So this is basically a replication of that kind of effect. So it's a cross between like an analog delay and one of our digital delays. And this particular pedal has a loop function which allows me to basically play in a loop of a set amount of time. So if I going to be hard to do this as I'm playing it. So it'll just keep playing that loop over and over and over. So I could play a passage of music, say 4-8 bars of something, and then use the pedal to basically solo over it. So as delay pedals develop, they're becoming more feature rich, and there's a lot more things that you can do with them. We'll probably move away from this pedal now. I just want to have a look at another couple of different types of pedals. Here I have the DL4 delay modeler from line 6. It allows me to set up 4 different presets and choose from 16 different delay effects. And they're all based on classic delays from throughout the years. And whilst we've discussed some of the different delay types, I just wanted to highlight a couple that we haven't already mentioned. Although before we do that, I just wanted to go back to our last chapter where we were talking about the rhythmic delays and setting up a dotted eighth note. This pedal has the tap tempo button here that allows me to tap in a tempo, and it's really designed to take the guesswork out of setting up your set intervals. The delay time in this particular effect allows me to set beat intervals like quarter notes, eighth notes, eighth note triplets, dotted eighth notes, that kind of thing. So at the moment I've got it set to an eighth note triplet, and basically set the mix up to just over half. And this particular effect is synonymous with players such as The Edge from U2, and a lot of early U2 stuff had this effect all over it. And whilst I'm not actually allowed to play any U2 material because of copyright reasons, I'll play in the style of U2, and you'll get an idea of basically how it works. So I'll just tap in a tempo, and then so I can also change this to something like, say, a straight eighth note, which allows me to basically get a different rhythmic pattern. So if I tap in the tempo, so that's a couple of different examples of good rhythmic delays, and setting it up with a tap tempo, and it's really easy. Just basically tap in and follow the drummer's kick pattern, and you may need to adjust it through the course of a song if your drummer's varying his tempo slightly, but basically it just gives you a really easy way to lock in with the tempo of the song, and those rhythmic delays will just sound, fantastic against a proper tempo. As the name suggests, a ping pong delay basically has the delayed signal bouncing between the left and the right channels. Essentially it's a stereo effect, so you need to have a stereo power amp, 2 amps, 2 channels on a mixing desk. You get the idea. So basically this is what it sounds like. so you can hear it modulating between the left and the right. So again, really good for percussive type effects. And because it's a stereo type of effect, you can get really good stereo spread, particularly if you're cutting down the repeats and make the delay time fairly low. You can really fatten up a good dirty rhythm sound. So here's my dry signal. And here's with the delay on. I'll just increase the mix a little bit. So there's a couple of different things you can do with a ping pong delay. And last but not least, the Line 6 DL4 also has a loop sampling function. So rather than having 4 presets, when it's set to loop sampler, the switches take on different loop sampling functions. So A is the record and overdub of a loop. Switch B allows us to play or stop a loop. Switch C allows us to play once through the loop, then it'll stop. And switch D will either play the loop in half speed, or you can toggle it to play the loop in reverse. So that's been a pretty comprehensive look at different types of delays. I'm going to play this chapter out with a little bit of a loop demonstration.